All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Lee Velez. I am here with me, myself, and Gabe. It's just me and Gabe today, folks. This one's titled The Lost Interview. It is an interview by my partner in crime, Gabe Rivera, and he is interviewing myself because of an error that we both made in the past over a year ago with a very interesting interview that we had, a one-on-one Q&A, and we've never felt right ever since. We felt so bad because it was almost an hour and some change interview. And
it was, especially in the very beginning when we were like first starting this, it was very much in the vein of what we wanted to do, like a purely conversational, and it was lost in the mix, unfortunately. It was recorded incorrectly, so we never got to use that for anything else.
We were pretty like natural with the Q&A part too, which was like we almost like blew our socks off because we're like, dude, that was awesome. Like, you got to understand, we recorded the whole thing thinking it was actually capturing what our interview was about, or even just our conversation in general. So we were extremely excited that we nailed it for once, because before we were doing like a group setting thing. We had a couple trials or whatever, and then one day we purchased new equipment and we're just testing it out.
Yeah, I was trying to get a feel for the new stuff, and I just came here not having fully everything equipped on, and we were already talking to each other about random, about the kind of this stuff anyway. Right. And like, oh, let's just hit record and keep it going, and not realizing that it was nothing, everything wasn't fully functional, and we just missed the actual full proper recording of it.
And it's one of those things that you can't truly recapture.
No.
It was like I was, very passionate about what I was saying, and that's just something you cannot just repeat. Even though it was me, I can't redo that because I was in that moment. Yeah. And the questions that were being fired were also in the moment. Nothing was written down. It was genuine as genuine can be. So we are going to try to come as close as we can to that interview.
To at least that vibe of it.
At least to the vibe, yeah. I will never take away, and I will always remember that interview, and I'll never take away from it. But it was one of the saddest times at the Rotated Views.
When I went back to
camp,
re-listen to it, and I was like, darn. It was like a purely like deflating moment, unfortunately.
So if you're new, thank you for joining us. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Don't forget to download and subscribe. And we usually kick things off with a definition. But
today's definition is Jimmy Lee.
Yeah, today's definition is just going to be myself. And we are going to get right into it. Off the top, I'll kick things off. Okay. And it's really just going to be a Q&A, Gabe bombing me with questions, and just wherever the conversation takes us. But I just wanted to give people a little bio about myself before we got things started. So my name is Jimmy Lee Velez. I am married to my beautiful wife, Kellyanne Velez, and we have a fabulous, wonderful, energetic, talkative son, James Bennett Velez. I received my bachelor's degree from Temple University. I have a bachelor's of science in the concentration of health information management. I'm currently enrolled at Drexel University in the city of Philadelphia as well, going for my MBA. The whole point was in 2006, I was introduced to the personal development industry. I had a complete paradigm shift. In all honesty, I was going in the right direction, but I was probably still just getting in my own way and slowing things down. When I found the personal development industry, when I was introduced, everything seemed to accelerate. I became very passionate, and as I mentioned before, had a complete paradigm shift in the correct direction on how I wanted to approach life. And what I wanted to provide and give back to the world when it came to my talents and really just what I believe what I was born for, and that is helping other people become the best versions of themselves. And it was actually my buddy Gabe who introduced me to a home-based business that really focused on the education. They truly believed that if you were different, if you changed the way you approach life on the inside, that the outside results will eventually show. So it wasn't just about, selling soap. It was more about becoming a huge asset to your own life and changing internally so then that you could, externally get results.
Yes,
and so with that, obviously, I moved on, but I kept the personal development thing at the forefront of my entire life, to the point where I got, an entire library filled with personal development books, self-help books, professional books, like money-making books and all those things that basically make the person that I am today. And I just want to read as much as I can so that I can, I don't know how to explain it. So I can then give it back to the world. So I was on one of those things where someone told me a while ago that, God's gift to you is life, and your gift back is what you do with it. Right. So whatever talents he's blessed you with, it's how are you going to sharpen them, to basically become, the individual you're supposed to be the at the top of your entire meaning of being here, the pinnacle of who you're supposed to be. That is worked on day in and day out. And that was just, I've been on that kick ever since, like I said, since 2006. And to the point where I have my own personal development website. I have a motivational, album out that kind of has, like real cool beats in the background. I'm giving like these little motivational talks. I have a book out titled The Motivation Files, at themotivationfiles.com. And here I am here a year and some change deep with the Rotated Views podcast that is also family friendly, positive, uplifting, and very energetic with interesting topics that are helping literally everyone to become the best versions of themselves. And if you go on any of my social media outlets, everything's all positive, everything's family oriented, kid friendly, and like I said, I'm not sure where I would be now, but I know I'm at the best place I could be because of that introduction to the personal development industry.
Yes, and that's where actually I want to kind of start with some of that too. Is like that, obviously that's in college and everything. That's where me and you obviously our friendship began from there too. So, well, first, how did you get into HI or the
the health information management?
Because that was like a health professional's major. Like that's like a 2-year program, almost at the tail end of your college career, right? Yeah. So but there's no undergrad for that, right?
No. That is the undergrad. So
I mean, there's no like, because is that like a starting curriculum, like?
Yeah. So what happened was I was actually going to school for physical therapy. Okay. And so I was taking all my core classes were obviously in help to take core classes your first couple of years anyway.
But any majors mostly like that anyway.
And then the second half of your degree is really when it concentrates to, what you're doing. So that's basically what happened with me. But long story short, I was in a club, a physical therapy club, where it's like after hours classes, a bunch of other kids who were in the major would come in
and just starts twisting ankles and
knees. No, there was no practices. It was just kind of like building the camaraderie. Like we weren't obviously, you're not allowed to practice, you're not a licensed PT, but we would talk about what the future would maybe hold and where we would go from here. So they would have previous grads come in and talk to us and tell us like real life examples of how it is on the field, out in the field or whatever.
Gotcha. I think that's sort of, I guess, for engineering, because that's where when I went to school, is the IEEE club, which stuff like is the engineering things. They have, like they said, previous members or graduates and stuff come in and talk to you and kind of tell you the rings of the thing. So like same idea.
Exactly. So one day, one of these guys who came in, literally just graduated 3 months prior or something like that. I didn't capture that part, but I know he was like a newly, it was like a new grad. Okay. Whether it was like within a year or 2 years, something like that. Alumni. Like he's very new to Temple. I mean, to the professional world. Gotcha. And just had graduated from Temple. He comes in and tells us that he's part of a lawsuit and that, one of the, patients, suing them for X, Y, and Z. Now, I don't remember fully because my mind just went in a complete blur, and I'm standing there, and all I could think was, there's no way in the world that I'm going to get this, doctor's degree, and it,
and immediately
at any moment, someone who just wants to take up a legal case with me can just do it. And it just freaked me out. Maybe it was an overreaction. I don't know. But for me, it freaked me out. And that's all I could think about. Because the dude just looked so sad. Like, he was just sad. Like, he's... In his mind, how I took it was like, this dude went all this hard work, and now this is where he is.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. Somebody might be able to obviously educate me, and it might not... Maybe that's like a normal thing and whatever.
Well, I guess
but
that's why
the way I took it, I was like... What? So that was my...
Especially you're still in school. And then
it was my sophomore year. So my sophomore year, that's when I started looking at any other major that still was in the healthcare industry, because I loved the healthcare industry. And I just was now looking for, non-patient care.
Okay.
So somewhere, in the back, in the behind the scenes kind of thing. And I started talking to one of my buddies, and he's like, oh, dude, he looked at all the classes I already took. He's like, you're right in line, except for 2 classes you need to take for HIM, Health Information Management. I'm like, what in the world is that? He's like, it's exactly what it sounds like. You are basically managing medical records. Obviously, that entails a lot of stuff.
Sure.
But that's just a very basic, definition of it. So I said, okay. So I went to the counselor, met the appropriate people, started sending out a bunch of emails. And from there, it was like, you got to take 2 classes. You got to take them in the summer if you want to start your junior year for the 2-year program.
Because you have to start in the beginning. You have to start in the fall.
It's not staggered. Like, you have to start when they started. Or if you miss the boat, you miss the boat. You have to wait a whole other year. Yeah. That's how it was when I was there. I'm sure they changed it.
I think that kind of curriculum, especially it's like a 2-year program thing. I think you have no choice but to start.
Yeah, because I think the same professors teach both.
Yeah. So whatever you have to take in the fall, you get the second portion of it in the spring.
Exactly. So, and each semester builds off the next one.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You had like a level 1 class, and in the fall you'll have, in the spring you'll have a level 2.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's like you have to take this in order. So anyway, I passed those 2 classes. I took summer courses to make up the 2 things that I needed, the prerequisites that I needed, and I started my junior year. So I still graduated in 4 years.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a power-packed 4 years.
Yeah, that's right. I met you. It was that summer after your junior year, right?
Yes.
Or like the tail end of your junior year.
The tail end of my junior year going into my senior year.
And you starting there was just more happenstance because somebody else in that group, the special programs that we kind of talked about last week, somebody still happened to drop out or didn't want to do it or something.
So Gabe worked at internal medicine for Temple University, so it's part of the hospital. It's outside the hospital, but it's a building next to the hospital. And he was dealing in, the medical records department. And they came, I guess somebody from, my class was working there and just kind of resigned or whatever. And they came to our class and said, oh, we need one more, student worker. If anybody's interested. I'm like, I'm interested, whatever. So then I got the job. I went through, everything you had to go through. And Gabe was basically my supervisor. So whatever. So me and him were just, talking, going back and forth. He's like, oh, we found out, you're Puerto Rican, so am I.
Well, and the funny thing is too, was especially in the beginning, was that it was always kind of like a high and by type thing. Like you came in, I always remember randomly, like if you come in like with your bike, something.
My bike seat.
Yeah. I was thinking say the wheel, but that seemed like too much. But, but yeah, it was in the very beginning of maybe the first, a few weeks or something. It was just always a high and by. I brought the records upstairs. I think a few times you came by yourself and just chilled up there and did the work you supposed to do.
Yeah.
But then there was one time, that's what we got super acquainted, was I think I stood up there for a good long while. I just talking about everything, music and culture and everything.
Well, I think it was a day where we got shortchanged. Somebody who was supposed to come in didn't come in, but something had to get done. So you actually started working at the desk next to me, just kind of helping out or whatever. And then while we're doing that, a conversation just kind of
because it was, because I do remember it was literally just me and you in the room that we were using, the spare room that we were using upstairs. And it was just random as heck that even started up.
Dude, we were taking charts, taking them out of the old school manila folders,
because putting them in order. They were being expanded is what it was. It was from 4 sections to 6 sections. So that's what it was, a special project of them trying to organize everything and repurpose them into like more detailed, I guess, parts of the chart.
Exactly. So we're like assembling these new charts.
I guess like
reassembling them. But anyway, it was a cool gig. I mean, you're putting charts together, an air conditioned facility, and I mean, you were in the field. That was part of the field that I was getting acquainted with. I was getting my name out there. I mean, I don't know, and it was attached. That's where it was on a health science campus. That's where I took my classes.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a win-win.
Yeah, and it was in the same building that you met your teachers and everything in too.
Yeah, exactly.
So that kind of worked out.
Yeah.
But so obviously when we started acquainted, then that's when I started talking to you about it, because I was actually somewhat freshly new into the business, personal development business too, like the home-based business.
Yeah.
And that's when I remember speaking to you about it, and like, I don't know, you were totally confused when I first talked to you about it.
I had no idea what he was talking about. So I just went with it. And I'm like, okay. He's like, oh, I got a guy who's going to, who knows a guy kind of thing. And
it probably sounded, especially me being new, it sounded shady as hell.
Yeah. So it was like one meeting led to another meeting, led to just me being a part of it. And it's just a cool vibe, cool people.
But obviously, like, going back, I guess, a little before that too, because obviously you had to be open to that thing. Because the fact that me being new, I didn't fully explain it properly, and you had to be open to that type of situation. So I mean,
we have always had entrepreneurship running through our veins, and money making ideas always coming and going. So of course, someone started talking about making a passive income or an income on the side, as they always say. It piqued my interest. So he showed me his videos, showed me all this stuff about, the business. I was confused as anything. I still didn't know what was going on. Because it went from like, oh, I got this thing. I want to just watch this video. And I kept asking questions. He's like, oh, I can't answer no questions. And I'm like, okay. So he puts on this video and I'm just watching. I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching though. What is this? He's like, oh, you can make money. I'm like, okay. So then I just sat there and watched. I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah. Are you available Thursday night? I have a guy who's going to explain it. I'm like, okay. So they just kept leading me on to the next thing. And since he kept saying you can make money, and that he has like a 18-year-old mentor, which that meant the guy was like a year younger than me. And I'm like, what?
And I think at that point, I don't know how old I was too, but he was like a few years younger than me.
I was 21.
I think he was 19, I think.
And he was like 18 or 19 years old. I'm like, what? Wait, hold on. He's like, yeah, this dude's making real good money, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, obviously, any normal person who's never been exposed to this stuff, and we're talking over 10 years ago.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like it seems like
that
long
so,
ago,
I mean, so the industry's been around for a while. But anyway, long story short, I got involved, and it was like, buy these products and, you're selling them. But their main focus, I kid you not, was the education.
That was the biggest thing.
And I tell these guys all the time, that's what kept me around, is because I saw myself grow literally right before my eyes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing too. It's like, even though like I personally wasn't, financially wasn't doing like amazing in there or whatever, but it was the self-growth that was in there. And I guess somewhat in the same vein too, was like that I was looking for something different too. For the fact that was like, I had come out like some hardships and stuff. But prior to that, I was like, I need something more positive to be in my life, to kind of gear me in the right direction for something.
Yeah.
And, that was too. It was like the education was the hugest part of what I've taken away from, even, since I'm way outside of that, of being part of that anyway too, was the education part of it.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I was at Temple going into my senior year, stressed out as stressed out can get. I mean, it was just like the pinnacle of me being, you're taking 18 credit semesters, and like I said before, it was one of those things. If you failed one class, you were held back for a whole other year because they didn't offer it the next semester. So it was brutal. So it was like everything was riding on this. I'm like, I gotta finish, and I had this thing that I had to finish in 4 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, the personal development got me through how to handle stress, how to act professional. How to schedule, my day out properly, and really organize my life in a way that I was able to take on all those extracurricular things that I was doing, plus the part-time job, plus doing flag football and intramural like sports and softball, basketball. Obviously had like a social life. So it was like all these things, and I was doing this home-based business. I mean, it was incredible when you started looking at the schedule. I was never afraid of work. It was just putting it all together the proper way.
Yeah,
and finally, I met a group of people who showed me how to properly organize. And really, it was when I first became truly disciplined, because I was disciplined before, but that's truly disciplined, because that was saying no to a lot of stuff and saying yes to my dreams is kind of how the best way to put it.
Put everything aside. Like I guess they always thought was
delayed gratitude.
Delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification.
But it's that mentality of you know what you want and doing things properly to get that the proper way. Because even within that business, even though it seemed like when you're very beginning, all you see is numbers and money and stuff like that too. But it was the whole they always taught was fast money is not good money. Right. That type of situation where it was if you do it properly, if you build stuff properly. Not even within that business just in general, which was the whole biggest thing we taught from there was the business principles.
Right.
Was that you can apply to everything. Was that if you do something properly, it'll be a foundation that you can completely grow upon.
Yeah, and that's where I am. That's why I built the entire foundation off of. So, yeah.
So did you ever do anything similar like that before? Like prior to that, or no? Did you ever try any other like? I mean, you said you did do the with your dad, you guys went to like the flea market and stuff like that too.
Yeah, no, I mean I've done stuff where I like quote flipped money, like like at flea markets and stuff where we would just stock up a bunch of what people call quote junk, and we would sell it at the flea market. But there was nothing
like organized. That was
there was nothing like organized in that sense. No. But then after that, I did a bunch of other stuff like. With internet sales and internet marketing and all that stuff, that was that tailspinned all off into itself, and then then I did some like investing in precious metals and stuff like that. But that came after all this. That became my thing. After that, I came fixated on money making ideas outside of my main income. So yeah.
Okay. But actually, going back to college, I was actually thinking about this the other day. It was like that because that was you said that was the first. You're the first one, like I guess, in your immediate family that did college, right?
Yes. That finished really. Okay. Because I have my brothers both attempted it, but that finished. So I was the first one in my family to get their the bachelor's degree. So. Yeah, it was a really big deal, and there was that was also adding to the
pressure of all that.
Yeah, that no one else put on me. I just think I just put it on myself, and once I set the goal, to me it's semi scary because I know I'm not going to give up until I do it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Until I complete the job. So,
and that seems like kind of going back to somewhere like part of a conversation like last week we were having too was like, especially like very early on of like the whole resilience of like obviously you had the whole issue with like. The second grade going to trying to hold you back like in that very early it was like trying to like that early resilience and obviously your parents fought for you too. It's like you didn't have the frame to do that on your own immediately, but I guess that taught you resilience super early.
Oh yeah, growing up my mom did a home-based business. My mom did Mary Kay. So we saw her go through that whole transition stage and having people over and doing those little things. So I saw that. To me it was no like shocker once the business fully got explained to me of what this is. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm familiar with that. And even like growing up, going to like in school and sports, like in I remember in elementary school we had to sell like candy to go on like a school trip or whatever, and I had like the #1 sales like in our grade or whatever it was, and I was just on a mission. I sold like. In like 3 days, I sold 500 pieces of candy.
Holy smokes! And
and it wasn't like, oh, my mom took the box to work. It was I sold every single one.
Oh yeah, because that's what we always see now. It's like you'll be like around the same time you have like 8 different people bring in either the order forms or the giant box of candy.
Yeah, for sure. And then like when we were in high school, we went to go to a tournament down in Florida. Now we're in the PA area, so we went to fly down to Florida and be part of this baseball tournament, and to do that we had to raise a certain amount of money. So we had coin tosses, selling t-shirts, doing all kinds of fundraiser type stuff to raise money. So raising money, knocking door to door from when I was a kid, selling at the flea market, being exposed to home-based business, it was kind of already like running through my blood kind of thing. My dad always had multiple jobs. I remember my dad had like 3 or 4 jobs at one time.
Holy crap.
It was a handyman too, so
So that's hard labor too.
Yeah, so it was a lot going on, and I grew up basically with that kind of mentality, like just get it, how you can really, and that's so when I got introduced to that stuff, but this was different. That was like more of like money making stuff.
Okay,
this was changing the way I was thinking,
mentality.
Yes, the mentality behind it. That's why it was so different for me. Like I said, I've been around. Why you attached to it so well. Yes, that's why I attached to it. And it was beyond the business part. Like you said, I didn't make crazy amount of income. I was probably making like a couple $100 a month, and not even, because I was putting out more money than. Yeah. So I was in the red. I think in 2.5 years, probably like way more than half. Yeah. That. But I wasn't even sticking around for the income, honestly. I was sticking around from the camaraderie, because there was a bunch of leaders there who not only knew how to present themselves, not only knew how to handle themselves. They knew how to talk. They knew how to face confrontation. They were fighting their fears. They were going out there and making themselves vulnerable to the fears of not being able to overcome and dealing with that. So it was like, if I don't do this, will I regret it, kind of thing. Yeah. Is talking to that person bigger than my dream? So they give you all these like little key things to think about, and it helps you to become an overcomer, and it helps you to become aggressive, but in an intelligent way. Yeah. So now you're not just being an all-out beast, like people like to say. And when someone says it of like a sport, that you can just bum rush to a bunch of stuff. And even in life and business, you could do that, but it's not sustainable. Yeah. So you want that energy to be sustainable. They call it like sustainable success. And that is what you want. Something that anybody and everybody can do because they have the mentality to do it.
Exactly, and that's what like brute forcing your way through it. Like you were saying, like it's not the right. It's almost like the quick version of it. It was like you could it might give you a small like success rate or whatever it is, but it's not sustainable, like you said.
It's not sustainable. This was totally different, and like I said, I was using it outside of the business world. I was using it for school. I was basically, shining myself up to be a professional. So I was about to get my degree, and taught me how to, dress properly professionally. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known. I mean, someone who's like, just slap a suit together, but where the pants are supposed to, where the pants are supposed to land, how to tie a proper tie, all this stuff.
There was a whole thing with like tying the Windsor ties.
Oh yeah, tying the Windsor tie. Even just like being properly shaven and all that kind of stuff. Like that's what I'm saying. It was a personal development thing more than anything. Yeah, absolutely. And once that you start building confidence internally, your quote salesmanship or whatever else that you want to deliver to the world, that's going to come, because that stuff is going to come. They say you look good, you feel good. Yeah, but not only that, so now you're dressed sharp, but now you have a very sharp mind to go along with it.
And even like they always said like that the people buy into you more than they buy into your product. So if you present yourself properly, of course they're gonna, and you're respectable and you look proper, like of course they're gonna buy, at least maybe an initial view of it. At least okay, I'll at least listen to this guy, as opposed to
absolutely.
As opposed to immediately write you off.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, literally, like I use tactics day in and day out that I learned 10 years ago. So, I mean, to say that it had an impact is an understatement. Yeah. It literally changed my life. So, I mean, like I said, it was one of those things that I just ran with, and I never stopped. I still had goals of reading 1 book a month. I still, I literally, till this day, even just driving home, I'm listening to personal development podcasts and stuff that's, talking about success habits and success principles. Because one thing that I learned was the success principles are, it's its own language no matter what you're doing. Yeah. So whether you're playing sports or whether you're, in big business, which is why corporate guy,
and which is why we heard a lot of sports analogies and sports, that type of business like that, especially with what was the football coach?
Vince Lombardi?
Yes, Vince Lombardi, and like at the time, like Tiger Woods was huge in his games, like type of stuff. Like those examples, because those are the same types of mentalities and ethics, like work ethics that people look forward to, like Michael Jordan and stuff like that too.
Yeah, and there was also talking about how to be financially intelligent. I mean, it was telling me, basically teaching me how to handle my money properly, how to knock out debt, how to do all that kind of stuff. So you got to think, I'm a senior out of college coming out of that, and I'm like equipped because I was listening to this stuff for a whole year.
And most people don't have that because obviously college teaches you, you're preparing for your job, but they don't teach you how to remove the debt of, that's entire mortgage that you get when you leave college.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, man. From that point forward, like I said, I moved forward from the home-based business stuff, but I still stayed in the realm of studying and making myself better every day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what we had like the backyard talks. It was always, I think it might have been even in the midst of all, like before me and you both left that business, it was, you were talking about writing the books and talking about like, you always had written down something like, I guess it was lyrics for the most part, but it was more like written word, spoken poetry type stuff.
Spoken word stuff.
Which was extreme precursors to kind of the stuff you've done now anyway. Yeah. Which is, the rotated, I'll say the rotated views, but yeah, rotated views, that's another precursor to all this stuff
too. The motivation files.
The motivation, exactly. And that's what, and obviously you did your projects in reverse, but you always had that part was always a part of you anyway. I mean, was music a big part of growing up? Because obviously music and poetry are kind of hand in hand anyway.
Yeah. Just taking one step back though, but it taught me proper goal setting.
Yes.
So I was taught proper goal setting. So I wasn't just saying some like randomly lofty thing and, becoming frustrated because my expectations didn't meet with, my actions kind of thing, or my results.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so going back to your question, yeah, music, of course, we're Puerto Rican, so in our culture, music is always on, or someone's always singing.
That's true.
So yeah, music played a huge influence, just in my life alone. But yeah, going from there in high school, I dove into a bunch of different genres, and that's kind of where I got, like my motivation to get through high school. Really, it was just like, these like kind of pump you up, not to sound cheesy, but pump you up kind of songs.
Yeah.
For sports and working out,
sure.
and studying, and just kind of like, alleviating myself from, the pressures of that life, your adolescence.
Oh, sure.
But
the teen angst.
Yeah. And so that carried on through college. Without music, the same thing. That was an outlet for me, just listening to music and writing and drawing and painting and doing all these other stuff was, it's one of those things. I don't know if you guys remember, but when Apple came out with one of their, the iPad Nano or something, on the back of it, you can get it like etched or whatever for free if you ordered it from their website or whatever. And I remember getting, Art Saved Me engraved on the back of my thing. And art was all of those things I just spoke about, whether it was me writing, listening to music, drawing, whatever. It was all those things combined got me through. So then I was able to use, my creative side to get me through. But, came my senior year, I was now having to face the pressures of being an adult once I graduated, like in a real adult, like in the real world, paying all my bills because the student loans were going to start kicking in. I had to, develop an income. A few months
to deal with that.
So I kind of put that stuff to the side, and that's when I put all my energy into, personal development.
Okay. Yeah.
So then, and then I would go back after a while. You get tired of this stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm beating my head over with the same, So then I was allowing myself to then draw something
to dive back into.
I was always writing though. I always wrote throughout the entire time, and
you show me like notebooks of stuff you just
notebooks,
writings of everything.
Oh, I was always writing. It was an outlet for me.
Yeah.
I was, and I also found fun in trying to, put things together and storylines, and just something about that was, an outlet for me that, took me away almost.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what
escaped.
I guess most artists. I don't want to sound cliche, but that's escapism. Everybody has it in their own way. Obviously, yours is the more artistic side of it.
Yeah, and it was, going along with that, it was just something about seeing what you're about to create.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm not the artist that every time I sat down I knew exactly what I wanted. Some people are like that. That's not me. Sometimes I know half of what I feel like for me, I know about like 35 to 40% of what I want. I know what I want to do, down to like 5%. I'm like in that range. I'm not in a high range of knowing, because then after that, I kind of just let it take off itself.
And that's what, like, the one time I think you explained, it was some kind of like drawing that you said sometimes you just put the pen down and like you just won't take it up. You won't pick up the pen because the lifting up the pen, it's like you want to create what it's supposed to be, whatever that's in your mind, I guess. Whatever it is, that once you take up the pen, that's the end of the drawing.
Yeah, I used to sketch in pen too, because obviously you can't erase pen. So they always say that there's no mistakes in art. And so I went with that, ideology that there was no mistakes, where I can tell you now there's mistakes in art. But I just kind of went with that just for, and it was almost like a challenge.
Yeah.
But there, like I was saying from before, there was like this element of surprise when I didn't know what I was actually drawing. Absolutely. And I was just like, let me see what I can come up with.
And it reminds me like like that whole situation, like one, you can mask quote unquote mistakes in art, because if you make it look good enough, you won't see the errors, because you assume that's how it was supposed to be. But at the same time,
I just tell people it's art.
Yeah, there you go. But at the same time, it reminds me of like the one Drake line. It was like you made a decision, but you have to prove you made the right decision.
Yeah. It is, and actually, that's how life is approached in many ways on my end. I mean, sometimes I don't know if I made the right decision, but I'm going with it, and I'm gonna run with it, and I also have like a deep faith, so I believe a lot of this 99% of the stuff that I do I'm not reacting. It's a lot of it is like it was planned from before, and I'm picking up these old memories. Like, at some point you wanted to do this.
Yeah.
So it's not just a random decision. Like me. I can be a spontaneous person, but when it comes to like the big things in life, I'm not spontaneous.
Yeah.
I'll have a spontaneous Sunday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, with my family, and just do a bunch of random stuff and actually get like a kick out of it. And I love that little adventurous part. You don't want to take that away.
But yeah, case in point is you said that took the principles of everything you learned was applying when you were planning for your wedding. Exactly. And that's what like that whole, you planned everything out to the T. What exactly, you had your second job at that point, everything. All the money you supposed to spend that week, everything it was a culmination of everything just to get ready for that.
Oh yeah. I mean, at that time, I was also like a Dave Ramsey soldier. Yeah. This guy's like a financial advisor for those guys who don't know. I mean, he's worth like tens of millions of dollars. But he has a talk show, the Dave Ramsey Show, that I was listening to, and he has this whole concept of how to handle your money. But yeah, so I was smart enough to grab enough nuggets and smack them together and make something. But yeah, that's how we saved up for the house. That's how we paid off debt. That's how we saved up for the wedding. That's how we got a lot of stuff done, obviously. Because otherwise, it was never taught. Like, how to handle money was never taught to me. Not directly. Yeah. No. Save this and save that, and
sure. You always,
but it was just basic stuff.
Put a few bucks aside every time you get paid, and you blah, 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 and it's like.
But I'm talking about like hardcore money management.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Totally different. So the years carried on, and like I said, I was still doing, stuff like that. I was investing in precious metals. I had fun doing that. I'm still invested in precious metals, not as heavily as I was before. That was just outright fun. I mean, I had fun with it because it was the first time it was my own idea. Yeah. Where I was doing some research on, what some of the investment options were. It wasn't like someone came knocking to my house, or a friend talked to me about it, or, I read about it in some like random article. I was doing my own actual research. And, off a book I read, there's a guy named Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He had a guy there that was on his team. I believe his name is Mike Maloney. And Mike Maloney, I think that's who it is. He was really their precious metal guy when it came to investing. And then from there, that's when YouTube was really, really hot with those videos. And I was just watching video after video. Not really watching, I was really like listening in the background, just because they're like telling you what to do. Dude, I mean, I was like hours on end listening to this stuff. and I got really passionate about investing in precious metals. That I mean, it got crazy, but
it paid off.
It
too, so.
really paid off. So yeah, so that was some really cool stuff. But yeah, so yes, exactly. So that mentality still remains. I mean, even now where I'm, stock investing and doing that kind of stuff, it's still the same mentality where.
But even like some of the envelope, like the stuff you're doing for the wedding, the envelope, you still do that to this day. Some of that.
I still do that to this day. Yeah, the envelope system. So for those who aren't familiar, it's like I said, I don't want to butcher the entire concept, but go to DaveRamsey.com or free promo for him. But yeah, his snowball method or snowball something. That method of paying off debt and approaching your finances he has an envelope system that you basically divide all your monies up into these different separate envelopes, and it's in cash. So apparently there's research done saying that people who use cash spend less because it's something about there's a stimulus that it's painful watching it leave your hand. Whereas a card, you actually don't see the amount go down. No, exactly. You're just swiping a piece of plastic. It's really like it's a budgeting tool.
Yeah.
So you know how much roundabout, how much you spend on gas. You spend $50 every week on gas or whatever it is for your vehicle. Then you just put the $100 away in an envelope for the next 2 weeks. You know how much you spend roundabout on food, and you just stick to those things. You can't go past that budget. Well, when you do that, you realize how much you just spend on a regular basis on just junk.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean it's
or even like just writing down everything you spend would give you like a visual like what the heck am I?
I think it was Henry Ford. I'm not sure if it was Henry Ford. I think it was Henry Ford. He did that his entire life.
Just like write down.
Yeah, and you're talking about like a millionaire, and today's like money has been like a billionaire.
I could imagine, yeah.
And he wrote down every penny he spent. Huh. Literally, because back in the day, pennies were actually worth something.
I was gonna say,
to put it all together, I continue to get new mind frames on how to approach life, but they're all building on top of each other.
Because even like you said, a lot of the books and stuff you get. It may quote unquote like retread the same information, but it gives you like different perspectives on the same type of situation.
Yeah, I mean, just think about like the fitness industry. How many fitness plans are people going to come out with? How many programs are there out there? It's all the same stuff down to the core. And I'm talking about the stuff that works. I'm not talking about the junk. No, just like that, there's a bunch of junky books out there. Even if it is in the personal development, self-help industry, there's some junk out there.
Because there are,
and I read them.
There are get rich quick books and all that crap.
Yes. Well, not even that. It's just the advice that the air quote advice that they're giving you is not really advice. They're probably
giving you sayings.
It's just
they're just regurgitating.
It's just regurgitated information twisted up in some other weirdo way. But I enjoy the books that yes, concepts might be regurgitated. And yes, it's twisted into their own mindset, but they're also adding stuff.
Well, that's what I was more going for. I know there was there are those like the terrible books, like anything else, like you said, there's terrible things in any medium. But I was saying the ones that you actually gain something from them that quote unquote may retreat
new information,
but they do it in a new way that's either more interesting or more gives you a better perspective of that you made it that a book maybe like that that might have been written years ago. Has an older perspective on it, but a newer person, more modern version, like a retelling of like the similar like examples and stuff. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's books that were written in the late 1800s and early 1900s that their information is used today in the personal development industry. It wasn't called that then. No, it was called like New Thought Author. That's what they called them. New Thought, like New NEW Thought. So just because they're so different. Yeah, I mean,
nobody thought that way, or that's what the what was the one author you said?
Or if they did think that way, they weren't allowed to think that way.
Well, the one book you said had to. The version that most everybody uses is the watered down version.
Yeah, there's a lot of that out there. In the early 1900s, there's only few people controlled like the United States, and literally these wealthy people even helped the government and its military with funding. That's how wealthy these guys were, that the government tapped into them when they were going to war or when they needed it for the military. I mean, it's that level of wealth for an individual, one person. So, you know, there's a lot of research done on these guys, and you know, one of the guys who was extremely wealthy was a guy named Andrew Carnegie. Oh yeah, and he made his wealth in multiple ways, but one of them was through the steel industry, and he had a student, or he had a young kid come up to him who was a writer at the time, who basically asked for a job, and you know, Andrew Carnegie thought about it and finally came back and responded and said, you know, I can get you in touch with the wealthiest man on the planet if you would just study them and basically put a report together for the next 20 years, but I'm not paying you anything. And what do you say? And this guy was named Napoleon Hill, and Napoleon Hill said yes. So he studied the wealthiest people on the planet for 20 years, and he put a bunch of stuff together. But the book was called The Law of Success in 16 Lessons by Napoleon Hill. When that came out, they quickly realized he was literally giving away basically like the secrets of the world or whatever in this book, because it's not just like habits. He was breaking it down almost to a science, found similarities in what these wealthy people were doing, how they approached life, what time they got up in the morning and what time they went to bed, and physical activity, all those kinds of things from the masterminds. Guys, we're talking about the early 1900s. This stuff was talked about, and it came out in this book, and then they basically quickly took it off the market and, you know, told him to basically, you know, make a dumb it down, make a watered down version of that. But nowadays you can get that book now. The full book now. Yeah. But back then, you know, it was like they couldn't believe that someone actually put that together and gave away the secrets of the world.
When you study for 20 years, I mean, you're going to put something amazing together.
And how knowledgeable that guy was. Yeah. I mean, from there, he became a millionaire. And not only that, he's made tens of, you know, hundreds of millionaires himself just by his teachings. So isn't that crazy? He got paid nothing but became a millionaire. And was around the wealthiest people on the planet.
And that goes back to what you said in the beginning of like what you take in and what you put back out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You put junk in, you're going to get junk out. He put thorough study into these human beings and into the topic. And that is what he got in return. To the point where people still study like hardcore this guy's work. And are still developing things from his original works. It's something incredible. You're talking about 100 years later.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
So obviously you're still actively, you're constantly always buying books, and you have new books all the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I'm a huge fan of the actual physical book. Like I like holding the book. Yeah. I like the smell of the pages, how weird that sounds. It's just like that feeling that I'm actually holding it. Yeah. Versus I do have books,
like ebooks, whatever.
Like ebooks and stuff like that. I don't know. I like to highlight. I like to write. I like that kind of, and I also like to just hand it to somebody who I feel like it would inspire or to help.
And it's easy with something that's not physical to be out of sight, out of mind type.
Yeah, exactly.
Mentality.
When it's there, it's just sitting on your shelf. You're like, you know what? I want to read that book. I haven't got to that book yet. Or I only read half of that book, or I skimmed through it. Maybe I should, you know. Actually, or I remember the notes on that book. Yeah. I want to go back and like refresh myself or whatever, because they're that powerful. And I also buy doubles of books that I feel that I was influenced by heavily. That all the time. I send people or give people books without charge all the time, just because how, you know, impacted I was by the books. Yeah, that goes without saying.
But do you do audiobooks or anything like that, or no? Because I remember before we used to go to
100%.
So that's the easiest way to when you're driving the car.
Yeah, but that's listening to books. Reading books and listening to books are two different things. When I read a book, I need a hard, you know, obviously, you know, like a paperback or hardback. But listening to books, I only do that when I'm driving. Okay. And I drive a lot, so I listen to personal development at least 2 hours a day.
Would you get the physical version of an audiobook to later on go back and notes on or do whatever like you'd like to do, go back and take notes on something like that?
Yeah, actually, believe this or not, half of the books that I bought were already books I've read on in the physical form. It's a lot of it's for review, or it's a book I read like 10 years ago, and I'm driving. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna buy that book. It's like 99 cents. So I buy it, and then they're just authors just talking. And like I said, I drive for at least 2 hours a day, so I'm listening to. I could knock out a book in 2 days.
True.
So
you won't buy like a brand new book as an audio. You get something as more something you already went through in some form or another.
No. I have bought books that I had no idea what I was going to get out of them, just because I burnt out the books that I on tape that I already did have. I actually do that regularly. But the thing that's kind of shifted is podcast. Yeah, podcasts really have changed the game a lot. So podcasts are free, and there's a vast amount of them.
Oh, absolutely.
We're recording one right now, but yeah, I listen to other people's podcasts. I appreciate the audio aspect and the medium that this knowledge is delivered in.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so awesome. Like, literally, they used to tell us, like, remember, think of your car as a university on wheels. And I always remember that. So, when, my life is constantly progressing versus the person who just listens to random stuff or doesn't listen to anything at all driving into work or whatever, or just music. I also listen to music, but I make sure the bigger portion is the University on Wheels. Yeah. So a lot of times on my way home, like my second portion of that ride, I listen to music, just kind of like...
Kind of chill out.
Yeah, just chill. I'm almost home. I got like 10 minutes till I get home. I listen to 2 or 3 songs and kind of like, oh, yeah.
Just jamming
Good stuff, just jamming out. And get home, big fat smile on my face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like one of those things. But I make sure I get it in. And I also read. Before I start work.
Okay.
Depends on how my lunch break goes. And then at night.
Okay.
Well, not a lot. It's not like I'm reading like an hour in the morning, hour. No, I'm talking about like
the 15 minutes
5 to 10 minutes, at lunch, because I need to eat.
Well, yeah.
And I socialize as well. But in the morning, it depends. Sometimes I'm, up and early, back from the gym, doing all that stuff, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, you know what? It's too early to leave. I could be reading for 45 minutes straight.
Sure.
That day, I won't read at lunch, and I won't read at night. I got my time in. I feel good. I don't read for time. I feel until like I feel my brain is filled with a great idea. Sometimes you can just read, like I said, there's just a lot of junk out there, and you have to just kind of filter through, and then finally, like, boom, you come across that paragraph. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it right there at that little nugget.
Because I remember you used to like, I think it was the Bible. You said you used to just like open up a passage and see what hits you, kind of.
Yeah. That's funny. I still do that every once in a while, but I started getting really into like just capturing the entire story of something.
Okay, yeah.
You can do that with like a Proverbs and a Psalms in the Bible, just because they're like little snippets of knowledge. Absolutely. They're like dropping dimes. So that's what I would mainly do that for. But yeah, every once in a while, I would do that, and I would land in the middle of the story. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? Yeah. So I stopped that method, but I would do it in the middle of a Psalms or, like I said, a Proverbs.
Okay. Yeah, that
so you can do that sense. Easily.
Obviously, you can't just open up a random book. I'm like,
it's great.
I don't know any of the context that's going on in this book.
Oh, it's great. I mean, you can see right here. My Bible's sitting right here, and then I got another book sitting on top of it titled God's Promises for Your Life. Huh. And it's it kind of goes over the same thing. Obviously verses from the Bible, but it kind of organizes them. So like if you can go in the back and say like, I'm feeling stressed out. So they put together all the verses that in the Bible hits on the top
almost
of the
like
stress.
An index.
Yes. So it's kind of like this little thing, and it's
that's interesting.
God's promise for your life. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's like it's more of like a reference book for me.
Okay.
Obviously it's not the Bible, but it has all Bible verses in it. But it's a quick reference book for me, and it's small, so I like to carry that.
Well, at least it's smaller than the Bible.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, that's it, man. I like to read.
All right, so I mean, we're gonna wind down too, because I think we've been talking for a little while now. But with just one last thing, like before we go, like total non sequitur. I actually prepare some questions and get to any of them, but
yeah, just go to rapid fire.
So,
what do they call that? What's that called? Like rapid fire.
It is rapid fire, or like the lightning round.
Lightning round. All right, so we're going for the lightning round for the closing segment.
Yes. So, and you already have some tattoos. Would you? Yeah. Do you want to add on to that? Do you want something totally different on like a different part of your body?
Yeah, so I have a quarter sleeve on my, actually half a sleeve. I'm sorry, half a sleeve on my left arm, and this has been in like very recent discussions. Location, not sure, but I have themes, so I definitely have images that I want that kind of all make sense together. So the answer to your question is yes. Location, not sure. Theme, yes. And has to still deal with, being like the leader of the pack kind of thing. So it's kind of in that theme. But I know exactly what it is.
Because the one that's a tribute more to your dad, right? Or is it kind of...
No, I mean, this is my entire, like, family.
Okay.
My parents, I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
And really like my beliefs. So I have like obviously a cross, but it's like in roses. I have the I can, I will, which was the saying that was going around when my dad was battling pancreatic cancer. On the inside I have like a cool saying that says perdóname, which means forgive me. Obviously, none of us are perfect, so some birds there represent my mom. There's all kinds of stuff, but the artist kind of put it all together, and it looks and makes sense. And so basically, I kind of want to continue that.
Okay.
But yeah. Oh, definitely. That's something me and my brothers we talk about all the time.
Would you ever get something like? 'Cause you have something that's obviously brotherly among all you. Would you
on
get
the other side? Yeah, my first tattoo was brotherly love, obviously from the Philadelphia. It's the LOVE, that red LOVE that sits in
from
Love Park. Yeah, and we got like stars underneath it, 3 stars underneath it, and the ones that's colored in indicates which lineup, which part of the lineup you came in. So the last one's filled in for me because I'm the third and last brother.
Would you get anything like that's maybe not like something right directly identical to each other? Would you get something like that's more somewhat connected but more personal to each individual, but they're kind of somewhat related, if that makes any sense?
With my brothers?
Yes.
I don't think so. No, because I feel like we got that, and it's kind of, it did the thing.
Okay.
That was my first tattoo. So that's the reason why I didn't want to touch that arm. I went to the other arm and then made the tribute to basically my belief and my parents. So I already have kind of something like for my brothers. Now it would be more for like my own family if I were to get something like that outside of the theme. Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't be. I also don't want to just. I've waited so long, so if I do get anything, I don't want to just slap stuff on just to get it. So all the tattoos mean something to me. So it took me a while to piece things together, but I'm at the point where I think I know
an idea of where you want to go from here.
Yeah, my thing is really location. It has nothing to do with what I know exactly what I'm getting. It's location.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Yeah, but I have a big tatted up back. Who knows?
A full body tattoo.
Exactly.
You got like the lizard man or something.
Right.
We'll keep on kind of with tattoos because that's kind of like a fashion thing. Would you want anything? Because like fashion is cyclical, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Would you want anything that's I guess kind of gone away but to come back at some point?
I think I feel like we're on our way there with a lot of it. I really appreciated like back in the 20s, no matter what you did, you had to get dressed up.
Okay.
And I appreciate that. Like obviously, it got to be it got to be our style because when we're at the gym, you don't want to be wearing like a suit or anything. But I'm just saying like. Just everything they did, they're always dressed up. Yeah. I just loved that era because everyone looks sharp. You have pocket watches and the hair is all slicked back and they're suited and booted.
Yeah, the men wore suits, the women were in dresses. And
yeah. And I say I feel like we're going back in that direction just because you see, like, the thing with the beards, because that was like back then that was normal. Yeah. Then the beards went away for a long time, and people had like low beards, but the big beards are back.
Yeah,
no, and that was like a normal thing.
Case in point, your brother. With the,
yes, exactly. And so I feel like we're getting back to that. You know, like regularly fitted clothes, not those huge, crazy, baggy clothes that they had like in the '90s or whatever, and early 2000s. Now it's like kind of getting more of like stylish in that, you know, that old sense of old world almost, I guess. I don't know. I like high style, like, you know, everything, like from the shoes to the kind of socks that you're picking out that match like your shirt, and the slacks that you're wearing, like that. I love that stuff, and just, you know, doing business and handling your business or whatever. I don't know. That might be like this terrible thought in my head that that's how everyone dressed in the 20s, but for some reason that's what's in my mind. Obviously I know not everyone dressed like that, but you know, in a perfect world.
But at least the professionalism was the picture of it, the image of it.
Yeah, I guess.
That's what you see, like the old school pictures was everybody, like you said, everybody, even the family pictures, everybody was like dressed to the T's.
Yeah, yeah.
Or dressed to the nines, whatever the phrase is. Obviously your name is Jimmy Lee. It's actually one full thing. And actually kind of go back to the very beginning. That's what like when my boss said, "Oh, we're getting a student. His name is Jimmy Lee." I thought you were an Asian student. I mean, but have that. Did you always get that growing up? Like
no, because everyone who saw me knew they saw me.
Well, okay, that's true. Because
I always did get the thing about my name though. Like, where in the world did Jimmy Lee come from? Yes, I always got that. But because we have Hector and Miguel, and then you have Jimmy Lee.
Yeah, you have typical Spanish names. Then you get
the most non-typical thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I did like a search. There's some website where you could do like a search to see who else has the same name as you. And literally, I'm the only person in the United States with the name Jimmy Lee Velez.
Well, I guess people have maybe Jimmy Lee, but not
Jimmy not and Lee as their middle name. My first name is Jimmy Lee.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
that makes sense.
And there might be a Jimmy Lee Davis or something like that. Yeah. But the only person with the name Jimmy Lee Velez. I have no middle name.
So was that? Did you have to be? Did you think you had to be like different growing up or anything like that, or?
No.
Did that add like any kind of different?
I kind of
dynamic
felt a little bit of. Like, I kind of felt already kind of different because my brothers were already like 4 and 5 years older than me. So I was always kind of just like did my own thing anyway. So in that sense, and I don't mean like different as in like just being complete like shut off and weird about stuff. And just I took life as it was. I was your average kid, whatever. But I always felt separate anyway. Yeah, because it was like they're already like, perfect example, like I'd be in elementary school and they're in high school. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they're living totally different lives to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, there was a sense of me wanting to do different things in them, but that wasn't me wanting to be, segregating myself from them.
It wasn't trying to be different for a different sake.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like, I wasn't trying to be different just to be different. I just wanted to do different things because that's what I liked. I didn't want to just necessarily follow in their footsteps. So I didn't want to just copy them just for the sake of just because I had no personality. Yeah. I genuinely felt like I had a different personality and approach to life, so I went with it. To certain things, I copied off them.
Sure.
Yes, because I watched what worked and what didn't work. It was almost seeing like your future. Yeah. In 5 years, if you do this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like watching everything they're doing. So I took what I thought I wanted to do in my life and then, put my little twist to it. So, so it wasn't being different just because, I need to be different. It was like different because I thought that's what was best.
Okay. Yeah.
In my little mind. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And obviously you did that at a young age. That's obviously still true with you today because obviously you seem like a pretty forefront of like, in terms of like doing a lot of like more ambitious stuff. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all have that in us. I truly do. I feel like we all have that in us. Just, it's a matter of time when someone is going to trigger the emotion to take action on it.
I guess that's what like you already had that inclination to like obviously go into like the business first development. Then obviously it was happenstance that I brought something like that to you. Yeah. That you already kind of in that realm that you like. That's when you really glued yourself to it. If that makes sense.
Well, yeah. Like even growing, like I'm just thinking about this now. Like growing up, like. Like my brothers were like, they had to take me places. So they would tell me like, you act cool, don't say nothing. So it's already kind of guiding me on basically how to quote, air quote, be cool.
Yeah.
Whether that was being cool or whether it was not being cool. when I was around, like my own peers, it might have, I was just like, oh, I'm just being cool. You know what I mean? Like, I thought I was super cool because that's what, the older kids were doing. And I was just, and then obviously I was around their friends. So all of a sudden when I'm in high school, now I knew all the older kids or whatever. That's true. No, I mean, so yeah, that definitely played like a role. They played like a huge role in my life in developing the person I was. But I wanted to take my own path because of my passion, like what I want to do with my life. Not because I wanted to be different.
Yeah.
I didn't want to settle for something that wasn't me. It wasn't genuine to me. I'm like, I want to do something that's, sits in my heart.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah, so huge influence. Shout out to Goose and Heck.
What trait do you most like about yourself?
I would say the trait that I most like about myself, but also got me in trouble, would be my sense of humor.
Okay.
Because I just love to laugh. I just want to smile. I want to see other people laugh. I just want to make other people laugh. But in school, in the middle of a class, and you're trying to make someone laugh, the teacher is probably the one who doesn't think it's funniest, and for some reason, that makes it even funnier. So then you start dying laughing, everyone around you laughing because we're all immature.
Or everybody staring at you because you don't know why you're laughing.
Yeah. So I think it would be my sense of humor. I like joking around or whatever.
Wait, that makes sense.
And when I'm around the guys, we're always busting chops.
Oh,
and
of course.
With my wife, we have our own little jokes. Like, I just love seeing people laugh. But even like being in a new environment, the first thing I'm looking for is like a joke, because to me that's like an icebreaker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or to say something funny, or even if I'm not saying like a joke, like a knock joke, but I'm saying like something that's going to make someone smile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it's for a split second, because it's like a little icebreaker. So I would say definitely a sense of humor.
At least it opens you up. It opens up the conversation to something else.
Exactly.
And lastly, what's an interesting thing that you don't think people know about you?
I am a righty, and I wear my watch on my right hand. Normally, you wear a watch on your opposite hand.
Yeah, I've never noticed that.
Yeah, and it's because in 2004, I shattered my wrist in a dirt bike accident, and I have like metal rods and stuff in my wrist, and anytime I wear a watch, it bothers the life out of me.
Imagine, yeah.
So it's actually painful to the point where it's like throbbing in my wrist. So one day I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to put everything else on the other hand. So I wear my watch. I'm a righty, but I wear my watch on my right hand. And it was very awkward at first, probably for the first 6 months. It was just weird.
Because you do something so habitually.
Yeah.
Like like you said, it's awkward.
Yeah, so now it's normal to me.
Of course, now, yeah, exactly. You get used to it.
I got used to it. So yes, if you see me, no, I'm not a lefty. I'm actually a righty. You can clearly see on my other arm, there's a bunch of scars on my hand, so you'll see why, and I can show them to you. But yeah. So I wear my watch on the opposite wrist.
Awesome.
So there you have it, folks. The Lost interview, classic Q&A between Gabe and myself, trying to tap into a little bit of background of who I am. And how I came along and how we even came to where we are today with the Rotated Views podcast, a little bit of history. I figured let's just plug that in there in the middle of summer. Feel like I'm a fan of bios, so it's kind of one of my things. I never had one really done on myself except for, writing one, having someone write one up for me for my website. But other than that, I thought it was pretty cool. It was a fun episode. Yeah. Thank you, Gabe, for the interesting questions. It's not a traditional bio, but I thought it was actually kind of cool.
Yeah, we did a good job.
Yeah.
No, yeah, because I was definitely it sucked. Like the thing before that, it got kind of messed up. But this is a neat way to kind of redo, but not really redo, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We're actually just paying tribute to a lost episode. That's really what it was.
Exactly. There you go. All right. Well, thank you for listening.
Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyLeeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyLeeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.